Hello, art lovers, paint slingers, and creative souls everywhere. Welcome to the very first One Spark Awards. We're still working on the title. And what makes it even better that this is my first quote-unquote awards show is for my favorite festival, Epcot's International Festival of the Arts, where every brushstroke is worth celebrating, every sculpture is a masterpiece, and every snack is an edible piece of art. So, speaking of edible pieces of art, so this is how this is going to work. We have 10 different categories awarding the best of the food at this year's Festival of the Arts. So, grab your paint palettes, your dancing shoes, your most extravagant hat ever, whatever it is that is art to you, because it is time to hand out some awards. Our first award is for the most creative dish. And let's be honest, this is the one festival where creativity is the main part of the food. And therefore, it is going to be hard to choose just one. You have your staples like the sushi donut from Japan, which is exactly how you would imagine it. Sushi in the shape of a donut. And then there's new dishes like the charred octopus from Fictional Victuals, which I had zero desire to eat, however, still super creative. Or the deconstructed BLT from the Deconstructed Dish, which is absolutely delicious and one of my favorites of the festival. But this year's winner for most creative dish would have to go to the soft shell crab slider. And there's no denying this dish is a crab with its claws still intact. If the look wasn't creative enough, it is topped with a papaya slaw and a mango ketchup, giving it not only a creative look, but a unique taste. And you can find this creative dish over at Opening Bites near Communicore Hall. Moving on to our next award, most aesthetically pleasing, or in other words, the prettiest dish. Now this one again is tough because they are all works of art. Some you don't even want to eat because they're just so beautiful. Over at Opening Bites, they have a new dessert dish called the Enchanted Rose, and this one is themed after Beauty and the Beast, Avi, which is absolutely stunning. Then over at the Deconstructed Dish, we have the Deconstructed Key Lime Pie, which is also eye-catching with its bright colors and unique plating. Even the drinks are aesthetically pleasing, such as the Rainbow Beer and Cider Flight at Figment's Imagination Station. But this year's winner for most aesthetically pleasing dish goes to the roasted bone marrow. Now, I know, it doesn't sound pretty, but it is. And extra points to the food and beverage team at Disney because who else can make bone marrow look so pretty? You can find this dish over at the Craftsman's Courtyard. Next up, we have this year's best savory dish. As a savory gal, this one here is my jam. You have the simple and classic tomato soup with grilled cheese from Pop Eats, to the carne asada with its tender meat paired with vinegary goodness of the noble salad and the saltiness of the grilled queso fresco, and not even to mention one of my favorites, the delicious spicy soup from the Encanto booth. But this year's winner for the best savory dish goes to the red wine braised beef short rib. Okay, this is seriously my favorite dish every year. The meat is so juicy and tender and full of flavor, and the parsnip puree is to die for. Every aspect of this dish is delicious and works together. Everyone in my group agreed that this was the best dish of the fest, and you can get this dish over at the Pastoral Palette, which is in the Germany Pavilion. Now, we can't have a category for best savory dish without having a best sweet dish, can we? So yes, that's what's up next. So this year's best sweet dish. Now we've already mentioned my love of the deconstructed key lime pie with its brightness and a beautiful plating. And then you have the stunningness of the Enchanted Rose. But one of my favorites this year that has been around and I finally tried was the rainbow cake from Figment's Imagination Station. The cake was so moist and a good ratio of cake to frosting without being overly sweet. And I'm sorry, but I love the freeze-dried Skittles. Though the rainbow cake seemed to be the clear winner, the very last dish I tasted at the festival ended up winning out. And this year's winner for best sweet dish goes to Natalia de Mays, and I apologize for mispronouncing that. Okay, I cheated a little on this because this is a little bit more savory of a sweet dish than just pure on sweet, but hey, that's what happens when I get to pick the awards. We were all shocked at the taste of the dessert. It tasted like the sweet corn side dish you used to be able to get at a Chevy's mixed with like a creme brulee, and it was so good. The creamy corn custard was sweet and soft, and the caramelized sugar added a nice texture to the dish. Not to mention the actual popcorn plated creatively on top. A 10 out of 10 for this one. You can purchase this dessert at El Artista and Burrito, and I know I didn't say any of that right, but it's outside the Mexican Pavilion. All right, now for my drinking around the world buddies, the next award is for you. This is the best drink of the fest. There were several amazing, unique, and beautiful drinks this year. A go-to for me is always a play on rosé flight from the Pastoral Palette in Germany. I hope they never get rid of this. It's served with 3 different rosé drinks, including a rosé ale, a rosé cider, and a frosé, which is a frozen rosé. You also have the Silver River Hard Lemonade from the Painted Panda, which is a lavender coconut syrup and lemonade served with vodka and a beautiful purple color, and it's got sparkles through it. So it's totally my jam, and it's actually really delicious. Now, there was basically nothing at the Deco Delights booth this year, but there was a beer flight that was so creative and delicious. You were able to taste a vanilla bean ice cream beer, a strawberry shortcake hard cider, and a milk stout with coconut. All of those were delicious, but nothing was better than this year's best drink, which goes to the Argarita. So if you haven't heard of it, that is because it is the sacred drink, even though that it's not so secret because everybody's talking about it. And it's from La Cava de Tequila in the Mexico Pavilion. La Cava partnered again with artist Dom Corona to make this artistic drink with pineapple, coconut, apero, and tequila, topped with whipped cream and sprinkles. It is gorgeous, but don't let that fool you. It is a strong drink, but mix in that whipped cream and it will go down very smooth, almost too smooth. You can get this drink over at La Cava for $21.30 after tax, but make sure to tell them that Dom sent you. Now, we cannot forget about our host of this year's and every year's Festival of the Arts, the one, the only, my favorite Disney character, Figment. Now, I didn't get to try all of the Figment-inspired or themed drinks and food, but I did have some people out on the floor trying these for me as well. But we have to pick out the best Figment-inspired food or drink at this year's festival. Now, nothing says imagination like this year's Figment's Imagination Lemonade, which had several different kinds of syrups you could choose from, and you can even mix and match them to make your own unique flavor. I tried the strawberry mixed with the toasted marshmallow, and it was so good. It was sweet without being overly sweet, and I was actually able to drink the whole thing. I would normally not be able to because it would be just too sweet for me. And my sister tried the cupcake flavor, and it literally tasted like drinking a cupcake, which was great for the first little bit. And then that one was too sweet. But they were still delicious and they were still creative. And then there was the rainbow cider and beer flights that we mentioned earlier. And the new raspberry pastry tart, the Liege waffle, and the Imagination cone were all great ads for this year. But this year's winner for the best Figment dish has to go to the returning rainbow cake. I knew I had to get the rainbow cake on here somehow because it did not win the best sweet dish of this festival. I had to find a way to get it in here, and here it is, the best Figment dish. It is so moist and so delicious without being too sweet, which is how I like my sweet dishes. Sweet enough, but not too sweet to make you sick. We love our festival staples and classics, but it's always exciting to try something new, and our next award to celebrate just that is our new favorite dish of this year's festival. So there was tons of new dishes this year. There was the butterscotch milkshake, which was basically like drinking butterscotch pudding. The cheddar and chive scone from Opening Bites. I honestly never thought I would have caviar in the middle of a Disney park. And one of my favorites was the squid ink pasta with lumps of crab and truffle cream and shaved truffle. Oh, it was so good. But this year's winner for the best new dish has to go to the pork and white bean cassolette. Maybe it was because of the freezing weather, but this dish hit the spot. It was like a delicious, I think like white bean chili topped with pork. It was warm and savory and flavorful and was the favorite for several people in our group. This one would definitely have to be the best, and this is over in the Germany Pavilion. Now, not all things are great. In fact, some things are the worst, and I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't warn you of the not so fantastic dishes. Now, these are mine and my friends and family's personal opinions, so to each their own. If you like these dishes, great for you. And if you want to try these dishes regardless of my opinion, good for you too. But I have to warn you of these because some of these were just plain awful. First, the chicken pot pie over at Artist Table seemed promising and interesting with its open face concept, but the execution just wasn't there. The chicken and the gravy on top tasted sour and rancid. One person even stated that it tasted like they think canned dog food would taste. I had high hopes for this one, but it just did not deliver. Same can be said for the beef Wellington inspired dish at Craftsman's Courtyard, and yes, it was just inspired. It was not beef Wellington. In the years past, they've had an actual beef Wellington over at the American Pavilion that was so scrumptious and tender. But this inspired dish did anything but inspire. The filling in the croissant was lackluster and just made the croissant soggy, and the meat was a huge step down in quality and taste compared to previous dishes. But this year's winner, or maybe loser, however you want to look at it, for the worst dish is hands down the deviled egg trio from the Artist Table in the American Pavilion. These deviled eggs were the most disappointing because they were not deviled eggs at all. They were hard-boiled eggs with toppings. We Southerners, if we are allowed to call Floridians that, love deviled eggs. And Disney, if you're listening, these are not deviled eggs. All right, moving back to the positive things, we are down to our last two awards, and we are moving away from dishes to the overall boost. And in case you didn't get it from the last award, the American Pavilion will likely not be winning anything in this. Our first booth award is for the most unique food booth. The new opening bites at Communicore Hall had all new dishes from the crab slider to the enchanted rose that were all themed and properly executed. And then you have the deconstructed dish booth, which returned this year and is always some of the most beautiful dishes of the fest. But this year's award for the most unique food has to go to fictional victuals. This may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it surely is unique, with the charred octopus, the squid ink pasta, and the black cocoa brownie with ube ice cream. I would definitely give this one a whirl and try something new and unique. All right, we are now on to our very last award, so we need to narrow it down to find the best overall booth of the festival. The El Artista Hamburrito, which I always say wrong, but if I say it fast enough, you might not notice, in Mexico is always a favorite serving up of Mexican-inspired dishes. We've talked about my love of the carne asada and the natilla de maize dessert, but hey, they also had a croqueta that was delicious and actually had a wonderful spice from the chipotle salsa. Each one of these dishes were amazing. And though I didn't get to try them this year, they had several drinks. Everyone else has been raving about them, the Florida and the Strawberry Field Margarita. Then you have the Craftsman's Courtyard, full of savory goodness. Even though I wasn't a fan of the beef Wellington inspired croissant, the cast iron PEI mussels and the roasted bone marrow made up for it without a doubt. You can also find the famous coffee old-fashioned cocktail at this booth as well, which people have been raving about for years. And then you have the Vibrant and Venvito booth, which is inspired by Encanto. It was so close to being the winner. The empanada and the spicy soup are just must-haves, and must-have several times. I got the soup multiple times during this whole adventure because it was just so good. And it was cold, so the soup was amazing. And the dishes were full of flavor and color and just happiness. But this year's winner for Best Booth has to go to Pastoral Palates. With this booth winning the Best New Dish with the pork and white bean cassoulet and the Best Savory Dish with the festival staple of the red wine braised beef short rib, not to mention the Play on Rosé flight, it is without a doubt that this is the best booth again. It's been the best booth for me for the last several years, and I hope they keep knocking it out of the park and keep some of these staples and keep bringing in occasional new ones, but don't get rid of the beef. Please don't get rid of the beef. And that is it for our first One Spark Awards for the Festival of the Arts. Let me know in the comments what your winners were for these awards. Did you agree with our choices? Do you completely disagree? Let us know. Until next time, stay artsy, stay sparkly, and stay slightly covered in glitter. Bye-bye.